the wine glass shattered against the kitchen floor, red liquid seeping into the grout lines like blood. I stood frozen, watching James stuff designer shirts into his leather weekend bag as if he hadn't just detonated our entire life together. "Ashley?" I repeated, my voice oddly calm. "Your assistant Ashley? The one you said was just an eager intern?" He didn't even look up, just kept methodically packing. "She understands me, Rebecca. She sees my potential, doesn't try to hold me back like you do. My name is Rebecca Mitchell, and after 15 years of marriage, my husband was leaving me for a 23-year-old who still lived with roommates and called herself an aspiring influencer on Instagram." "Hold you back?" I laughed, but it came out hollow. "I supported you through law school, helped you build your practice from nothing. How exactly did I hold you back?" James finally looked up, his handsome face twisted into something I didn't recognize. "By being so damn perfect all the time. The successful investment banker who never makes mistakes. Do you know how suffocating that is?" I stared at him, really seeing him for the first time in months. The expensive new clothes, the gym membership he suddenly couldn't live without, the late nights at the office that never quite added up. All the signs had been there, I just hadn't wanted to see them. "And the trust fund?" I asked quietly. "The one we built together?" His smile turned smug. "Already taken care of. Had the papers drawn up last week. Technically, as managing partner of the firm, I had every right to protect our assets. The trust fund, $12 million we'd accumulated over 15 years of careful investing, smart career moves, and sacrifices." My stomach churned as I thought about all those nights I'd stayed late at the office, all the vacations we'd postponed, the family we'd put off starting because we were building something together. Or so I'd thought. "You can't just take it," I said, but even as the words left my mouth, I knew he could. James was a corporate lawyer, he knew exactly how to manipulate the system. He zipped up his bag with a flourish. "Actually, I can. And I did. Don't worry though, I left you enough to get by. Consider it a parting gift." I watched him stride toward the door of our penthouse apartment, designer bag in hand, looking every bit the successful lawyer about to start his exciting new life. He paused at the threshold, turning back with that practiced courtroom smile. "Oh, and Rebecca? Ashley and I are getting married in June. She's always dreamed of a summer wedding." The door clicked shut behind him, leaving me alone in the pristine kitchen I'd redesigned just last year, alone with the shattered wine glass, the seeping stain, and the knowledge that my husband of 15 years had just walked out on me. But here's what James didn't know, what his legal expertise and inflated ego had failed to consider. I wasn't just a successful investment banker, I was damn good at my job. And 3 months ago, when I first noticed the signs, I'd started preparing for exactly this moment. I pulled out my phone and dialed my lawyer, Margaret Chen. She answered on the first ring, as if she'd been waiting for my call. "It's done," I said simply. He took the bait. Margaret's voice was crisp and professional. "Everything in place? Just like we planned. He thinks he cleaned out the trust fund, but..." I smiled, feeling the first real spark of satisfaction since James dropped his bombshell. "But he has no idea about the offshore accounts, or the shell company, or the fact that I've been documenting every questionable transaction he's made in the last 6 months." There was a pause, then Margaret chuckled. "You really are brilliant, you know that? When you came to me with suspicions about James, I thought you were being paranoid, but you saw it coming." I had. The signs were there if you knew where to look. The sudden interest in cryptocurrency, the new offshore clients, the way he'd started asking pointed questions about our investment portfolio. James thought he was being clever, but 15 years in investment banking had taught me to spot patterns. So I'd prepared, quietly, methodically. I'd moved most of our assets into new accounts he couldn't access, created a paper trail of his suspicious activities, set up a trap that would spring the moment he tried to clean out what he thought was our main trust fund. "How long until he figures it out?" Margaret asked. I glanced at my watch. "The fake trust fund transfer should clear in about an hour. Once he tries to access it, the fraud alert will trigger, and all his recent transactions will be flagged for review." Margaret sounded impressed. "You've really thought of everything." "Not everything. I hadn't thought about how empty our apartment would feel. Hadn't prepared for the ache in my chest when I looked at our wedding photo still hanging in the hallway. 15 years was a long time to love someone, even if they turned out to be a stranger in the end. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "You're so lucky James wants to be with me. Don't worry, I'll take good care of him. Ashley." Of course she'd get my number from him. I deleted the message without responding. The next few hours passed in a blur. I methodically went through our apartment, gathering James's remaining belongings into boxes, his favorite coffee mug, The ridiculously expensive golf clubs I'd bought him for Christmas. The framed law degree I'd helped him earn by working extra hours to pay his tuition. Each item felt heavy with memories, with promises now broken. By midnight, I'd filled 6 boxes. They sat by the door like sentries, guarding the remains of my marriage. Then my phone exploded with notifications. First came the angry text from James, "What the hell did you do?" Then 3 missed calls. Finally, an email, his rage evident even in the subject line, "You will regret this." I poured myself a fresh glass of wine, careful to step around the stain from the broken one, and settled in to read his tirade. The email was exactly what I'd expected: threats of legal action, accusations of manipulation, demands that I fix this immediately or face consequences. Classic James, always believing he held all the cards. I typed out a simple reply: "I suggest you check your own accounts, specifically the transfers you've been making to Ashley's personal account for the last 3 months. The ones coded as business expenses but sent through your private server. I'm sure the Bar Association would be very interested in those." His response came seconds later: "You're bluffing." I wasn't. I had everything, every transaction, every coded email, every falsified expense report. I'd watched him dig his own grave for months, collecting evidence while he was distracted by his midlife crisis and his young girlfriend. Another text from Ashley popped up: "James is really upset. What did you do to him? This is so toxic." I blocked her number. The doorman called up to inform me that James was in the lobby, demanding to be let up. I declined. Let him stew overnight. Tomorrow would be soon enough to begin dismantling the life we'd built together. As I got ready for bed that night, I caught my reflection in the bathroom mirror. I looked tired, but there was something else there too, a strength I hadn't noticed before, maybe hadn't needed until now. I thought about the day James and I met, both young and ambitious, believing we'd take on the world together. We had, in a way, we'd built something remarkable. I just hadn't realized he'd been planning his exit strategy while I was planning our future. My phone buzzed one last time. A message from Margaret: "Everything's in motion. Get some sleep. Tomorrow's going to be interesting." She was right. Tomorrow would be the day James discovered exactly what happened when you underestimated your wife. But for now, I needed rest. I crawled into our king-sized bed, my bed now, and stared at the ceiling, listening to the quiet hum of the city below. 15 years of memories echoed through the empty apartment, but for the first time since James walked out, I didn't feel like I was drowning in them. Instead, I felt something unexpected: anticipation. Because tomorrow, James would learn that his carefully planned escape with his young girlfriend wasn't going to go quite the way he'd imagined. Tomorrow, he'd discover that the woman he'd dismissed as predictable and suffocating had outmaneuvered him at every turn. Tomorrow, the real games would begin. The next morning, I woke to 17 missed calls and over 30 text messages. James had been busy. His messages devolved from angry demands to desperate pleas as the night wore on, ending with a final text at 4:37 a.m. "We need to talk, please." I took my time getting ready, selecting a crisp white blazer and my favorite Louboutins. If I was going to watch my husband's world implode, I wanted to look impeccable doing it. Margaret called while I was doing my makeup. "Are you ready for this?" "He's been calling my office since 6 a.m. "I'm ready," I said, applying a final coat of red lipstick. "Is everything in place?" "The bank has frozen all the suspicious transfers. The Bar Association received our anonymous tip about his creative accounting. And that private investigator's report you commissioned? It's devastating." I smiled at my reflection. Perfect. Time to end this. The law firm of Mitchell Associates occupied the top 3 floors of a gleaming downtown high-rise. James had insisted on the location when we first opened it, claiming the view helped close deals. I hadn't set foot in the building since I'd first suspected his affair, but I still had my key card. Some things he'd forgotten to take away. When I stepped off the elevator, the office was in chaos, staff huddled in corners, whispering. Ashley was nowhere to be seen, but her desk had been cleared out. James's office door was closed, blinds drawn. Mrs. Mitchell, his secretary, Linda, rushed over. She'd been with us since the beginning, had watched us build this firm from nothing. "He's been asking for you all morning." It's bad." "I know, Linda," I said gently. "Why don't you take an early lunch? This might get uncomfortable." She nodded gratefully and grabbed her purse. As she passed, she squeezed my arm. For what it's worth, I never liked her. Too obvious with those short skirts and giggling. I approached James's office, my heels clicking against the marble floor. Without knocking, I pushed open the door. The great James Mitchell looked like hell. His perfectly styled hair was a mess, His expensive shirt wrinkled. He sat behind his massive desk, surrounded by papers and empty coffee cups. "What did you do?" he demanded as soon as he saw me. "The accounts are frozen. The Bar Association is asking questions. Even my personal cards are being declined." I sat down across from him, crossing my legs calmly. "I protected myself. Something you taught me, actually. Remember when you said every good lawyer has a contingency plan? This isn't protecting yourself," he snarled. "This is sabotage. You've ruined everything." "No, James. You did that when you decided to sleep with your assistant and steal our money." I pulled out my phone, scrolling through messages. "Speaking of Ashley, have you talked to her this morning? Since her bank flagged those transfers as potential fraud?" His face paled. "You wouldn't." "I already did. Turns out, moving firm money through personal accounts to pay your girlfriend looks a lot like embezzlement, especially when you code it as business expenses." He slumped in his chair, the fight draining from him. "How long have you known?" "About Ashley? 3 months. About the money? Longer. I'm an investment banker." "James, did you really think I wouldn't notice strange transfers and offshore accounts?" "Rebecca, we can fix this," he said, leaning forward. His voice took on that persuasive tone he used in court. "We'll tear up the divorce papers. I'll end things with Ashley. We can go back to Dash." "Back to what?" I cut him off. "Back to you lying to me? Back to me pretending I don't know who you really are." I stood up, smoothing my blazer. "No, James, we're not going back. In fact, I'm here to discuss the future of Mitchell Associates." His eyes narrowed. "What about it?" I smiled. The same smile he'd given me yesterday when he thought he'd won. "Check your email. You'll find some interesting documents from our biggest clients. They're not happy about the rumors of financial impropriety. Most of them are taking their business elsewhere." "You can't do this," he whispered. "This firm is my life. Our life." I corrected him. "We built it together, remember? With my connections, my trust fund to get it started. And now? Now it's just another asset to be divided in the divorce." His phone buzzed, probably Ashley realizing her gravy train had derailed. He ignored it, staring at me like he was seeing a stranger. "Why?" he asked finally. "Why go through all this? You could have just divorced me." I leaned across his desk, meeting his eyes. "Because you thought I was weak, predictable. You thought you could discard 15 years of marriage and walk away with everything we built. I needed you to understand exactly who you were walking away from." As if on cue, Linda appeared in the doorway. "Mr. Mitchell? There are some gentlemen here from the Bar Association. They're asking about an ethics complaint." James's face crumpled. His perfectly planned escape was falling apart, piece by piece. The money he thought he'd secured? Frozen. The girlfriend he'd risked everything for? Gone radio silent once the cash dried up. The reputation he'd spent years building? About to be scrutinized by his peers. "You'll never get away with this," he said, but his voice lacked conviction. I gathered my purse, preparing to leave him to face the consequences of his choices. "I already have." "Oh, and James? Ashley posted some interesting photos last night. You might want to check her Instagram. Apparently, she's already found someone new, someone whose accounts aren't frozen." I walked out of his office, head high, leaving him to deal with the Bar Association investigators. The staff watched me go, their expressions a mix of awe and sympathy. They'd figure out soon enough that Mitchell Associates would survive just under new management. Outside, the summer air felt clean and fresh. My phone buzzed with a text from Margaret. "Just got the preliminary divorce agreement drafted. You're going to like it." I smiled, thinking about the future stretching out before me. The firm would need restructuring, clients would need reassuring, but for the first time in months, I felt truly free. That evening, I returned to my apartment. The boxes of James's things still sat by the door, but they no longer felt heavy with memories. They were just boxes, filled with the belongings of a man who had underestimated his wife. I poured myself a glass of wine, carefully, this time, and walked out onto the balcony. The city sparkled below, full of possibilities. My phone had been quiet for hours. James was probably too busy dealing with the ethics investigation to harass me further. A text came through from an unknown number. "I'm sorry, Ashley." I almost laughed. Sorry she got caught. Probably. Sorry the money dried up. Sorry she'd bet on the wrong horse. I blocked her number again and turned back to the view. Somewhere out there, James was realizing that his perfect escape plan had backfired spectacularly. His young girlfriend had vanished, his assets were frozen, and his professional reputation was in tatters. Meanwhile, I had emerged stronger than ever. The firm would survive under my leadership. The trust fund he'd tried to drain was safely secured, and I had finally shed the role of perfect, predictable wife. 3 months later, I sat across from James one last time, signing our divorce papers. He looked older, tired. The ethics investigation had resulted in a suspension of his law license. Ashley, true to form, was already engaged to someone else, a fact she'd announced on social media with gleeful abandon. I never saw it coming, he said quietly as we finished signing. Any of it. I thought I knew you. That was your mistake, I replied, gathering my papers. You saw what you wanted to see, the supportive wife, the reliable partner. You forgot that I'm also a woman who knows her worth. I stood to leave, but he called after me. For what it's worth, I'm sorry, not just for Ashley, but for underestimating you, for thinking I could outsmart you. I paused at the door, looking back at the man I'd once loved. Goodbye, James, I hope she was worth it. The door clicked shut behind me, echoing with finality. In my purse, my phone buzzed with work notifications, client meetings to schedule, decisions to make. Life went on. That night, I finally cleaned up the wine stain from the kitchen floor. As I scrubbed, I thought about the day James left, thinking he'd orchestrated the perfect exit. He hadn't realized he was actually setting himself up for the greatest fall of his life. Sometimes the perfect revenge isn't about getting even, it's about showing someone exactly what they lost and making sure they live with that knowledge forever. I never told James about the second offshore account, the one even Margaret didn't know about. Some secrets, after all, are better kept, just like some lessons are better learned the hard way. The wine stain finally faded, leaving no trace of that fateful day. Like James's presence in my life, it had seemed permanent at first, a mark that would never fade, but with enough patience, enough determination, anything can be erased. Well, almost anything. The lessons? Those I'd keep forever.